What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GM's office. It's Chris Lambert here. Let's get into today's topic, which is Peyton Watson and his unbelievable play as of late, what this means for the Denver Nuggets currently, what it means for their future, and most importantly, what it means for Peyton Watson. Let's get into it. All right, little quick PSA. This is being recorded prior to the Bucks Nuggets game tonight. So anything that Peyton Watson does tonight will not be mentioned and will not be, whatever. But I'm going to talk about me and Peyton Watson, okay? I have this list in my phone. It's called Chris's Guys. It's a bunch of, hard-nosed, tough players who I think just give such a incredible amount of effort on both ends. Some guys in that group, your Ron Holland, your Isaiah Stewart, your Micah Peavies. Peyton Watson has been number one on that list for maybe 2.5 years now. I've always loved the defensive energy. I've always loved the highlight blocks. I loved the, just the lanky ability or the lankiness to his frame mixed with his ability to kind of handle the ball and, create a little bit of offense. I've always liked Peyton Watson, but I don't know if I can say I really ever saw this coming from him. I mean, over the last 6 games without Nikola Jokic, he's averaging 24.5 points per game and is still doing the same things he was on the defensive end prior to this offensive jump he's taken. So this kid's becoming a restricted free agent this summer. So this is a huge story, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And as a channel that tries to bring you the NBA from a front office's perspective, I think there's going to be any team, every single team that has even an ounce of cap space is going to be trying to spend that money on Peyton Watson this summer. Now, over this 6-game absence for Nikola Jokic, the overall average is, like I mentioned, 24.5 points, but it's also 6.7 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.2 steals, and 0.8 blocks per game. Now, I understand over this stretch, it hasn't just been Peyton Watson who stepped up for the Nuggets. Jalen Pickett had a huge game in the first game without Jokic against the Philadelphia 76ers, where the Nuggets won 125-124 in overtime. Zeke Naji's also had a few solid games. But for the most part, Peyton Watson has been a main reason this Nuggets team is 3-3 in these 6 games without Jokic. And now they're the 3 seed heading into their matchup today. Well, tomorrow for you guys, or I guess the day before for you guys, but against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, if you're the Nuggets, you just extended Christian Braun in the offseason to a massive 5-year extension. Is that a mistake now with Peyton Watson, becoming a RFA this summer and being a guy that I think every single team should at least be taking a look at? Because what he's doing right now is showing you that he could be one of the premier two-way wings in the entire, and I mean the entire NBA. For me, it doesn't make Christian Braun expendable, or it doesn't make his extension look bad, because he is a perfect player against Nikola Jokic. He cuts off the ball well. He's great off of screens. He's a good screener for a guard. He does all the little things that fit around Nikola Jokic and is the reason they have such good chemistry together. I believe the number one player Jokic assisted last season was Christian Braun, and it's going to continue to be like that just because they have such a, it just works perfectly. Especially, he's probably one of the top 5 cutting wing/guards in the entire NBA when healthy. But what it does do for me, at least, it makes me take a second look at Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon has been phenomenal this season. He continues to be phenomenal. He's another guy who's perfect next to Jokic because he's a very underrated rim protector at this point. Throughout his entire career, he was never a defensive guy. But then when he got to Denver, he really stepped up defensively, and he's been a really good rim protecting option next to Nikola Jokic. However, the age compared to Peyton Watson is a tough thing. And the Nuggets are a team that have literally came out publicly and said, oh, well, the second apron does 1 or 2 different things to us, and we might have to trade Nikola Jokic. Like, this team does not want to pay that tax. So I'm really thinking that they're having internal discussions like, would we rather have a 1 to 2 year window with Aaron Gordon or a 5 to 7 year window with Peyton Watson? I mean, the choice is right there for you. I mean, as a front office, your time there, your time with a team could end in an instant. We saw that with Calvin Booth and Mike Malone there. We saw, like, in a second, they were like, we don't like what your plans are, you're done. That can happen. So maybe the 1 to 2 year window is what they go for, but I just think losing Peyton Watson would be one of those moves where people around the league are looking at this Nuggets team and they're like, what were you guys thinking? And this is where it gets even more problematic because they can't really trade him. They can't, because either way, if they bring in another guy, unless it's someone another rookie scale deal type of guy, which isn't going to have the same impact as Watson, they're still going to have to pay the tax on that player. So this gets really difficult for the Denver Nuggets because you don't want to lose him for nothing, but you also are in a position where your ownership doesn't really feel comfortable paying the tax. So conversations and stuff are getting uncomfortable with the way Peyton Watson's been playing. But back to just him as a player and what he's doing. It's, for me, something I was looking at prior to this was he's, for his entire 4-year career, has been in the top 97 percentile, being in the 100 percentile twice in block percentage. And that's no shocker. This is probably my favorite part of his game, his ability to jump. He could make a play from half court and get back and pin something. Now, I'm not exactly sure which game this was. It could have been, no, it was Friday night against the Atlanta Hawks. So Peyton Watson was bringing up the ball, and Jalen Johnson kind of cookied him and stripped him. And Peyton Watson kind of reacted kind of slow, was at the half-court line, and Jalen Johnson was driving down the lane, as he does, and about to take a layup. And out of nowhere, Peyton Watson comes out and just pins it right off the backboard. That's the type of player that Peyton Watson is, and that's what makes him so valuable. We're seeing now more than ever, he has the traits. The three-point shot has been excellent. He's shooting 50% from three in the corner this season. In the corner. He's shooting 40% overall from three this season. This is an elite shooter right now. And while I don't think for his entire career he's going to project to be a 40% three-point shooter, I'm aiming for more the 37 to 30 or the 35 to 37 range. That's still ridiculous for a guy with his 6'8" frame, his lanky arms, and his ability as a defender and a rim finisher. This guy he has all the tools. And someone I kind of am seeing little comparisons in just like in the way that I was going to say it kind of reminds me of when Trey Murphy just kind of bursted onto the scene for the Pelicans. And I don't mean that they play the same at all, because they don't, but they're both 6'8" wings. They're both guys who had like their premier skill set. Murphy's he was a shooter. Peyton Watson's he was a defender, a switchable defender rather. And at one season it kind of just clicked for them. They got the opportunity with the amount of injuries their teams dealt with. And then they kind of just broke out and went from there. And that's what Peyton Watson's doing right now. I mean, it's wild. And a lot of people say, he could play shooting guard and maybe he'll be a starter when this team's fully healthy from now on. I don't necessarily think that. And I think having him off the bench with his ability, he's shown he can be an initiator for an offense, which he's not going to get the opportunity to do in the starting lineup because you have Jokic and you have Murray. But off the bench, he's going to get to be that guy. And as much as I think it should worry Nuggets fans for the future, I think right now you have a legit player who has just broke out and gives you a real chance to be the favorites coming out of the Western Conference in a team that could dethrone the Oklahoma City Thunder. Of course, one of the beautiful things about the NBA is we often see guys have crazy small game stretches when the other team's when their team's best players out, and it gives people hope. And then after everyone comes back, they get fully healthy, the guy goes back to his original role, and things kind of die down. But for me, something is different about Peyton Watson. And we saw last year for the Raptors, for example, Grady Dick really stepped up to start the season, showed like he was going to be this elite 3-level scorer, had people thinking RJ Barrett could become expendable, had Raptors fans really hyped. And then we saw, that kind of quieted down. I think this season Grady's shooting like 32% from three. So we know that was just a thing. Like it's a thing in the NBA. People get hurt. People have to step up, and they step up. And then when the people get healthy, they go back to being normal. But the difference with Peyton Watson for me, I think, is the free throw rate. This kid's getting in the line 7 times a game over this stretch. And, pardon me, he's in the 88th percentile in shots where he's fouled and going to the free throw line in the entire NBA. He's going to the free throw line about 13.5% of the time. And that's just ridiculous for a guy. And that's like full season sample size. I would love to know what his free throw percentage is like, or what his drawing foul percentage is like at this point, because he's attacking the basket with even more aggression and even more opportunity than he ever has had. So I really think Peyton Watson is the key to the Nuggets going to the finals this year. We see all the time that there's certain teams that just aren't cut for it, and we've seen recently the OKC Thunder look a lot more vulnerable than what they've looked like this season because they can't hit their threes. And a guy who's going to help the Nuggets prevent the Thunder from shooting and making threes is Peyton Watson, just because of his ability as a perimeter defender and the length he brings. So for the Nuggets, man, this is for the present, it's a win, but in the future, this is going to get scary. You talk about teams like the Brooklyn Nets, A team I think Peyton Watson could be incredible on is the Washington Wizards. I mean, I understand they have Bilal Coulibaly and they have a lot of similar traits, but Peyton Watson is what people wanted Bilal Coulibaly to be. This incredible two-way player who can put the ball on the deck, who can shoot the three ball, and who is going to be an athletic mismatch for every single person he guards defensively. That's what Peyton Watson is. That's the type of player this young man has become. Okay, so if I'm the Wizards, if I'm the Hawks, even Atlanta wants these long defenders. You have money this offseason now after clearing it up in the Trae Young trade, assuming they don't make another big move now that Anthony Davis is hurt. That's a team that should go ahead and call Peyton Watson's phone. I think this kid deserves anywhere from $25 to $30 million just off of what I've seen from him. That's the investment I'd be willing to make as a GM. And while that sounds like a risk, the traits are there. The traits you can't teach. The defensive ability, the athleticism, and the swagger, and the motor. The motor is the biggest thing. Like I just talked about earlier, him on that chase down on Jalen Johnson. He didn't have to do that, but he never gives up on a play. He never rests. This is one of the most hardworking individuals in the entire NBA. And he's a prime example of why front offices buy in on traits sometimes more than they do college production. Because in college, Peyton Watson wasn't great. He wasn't. Let's just say what it is. He wasn't a great player in college. But what he had was all these traits and all these tools to be a really good NBA player. And the Nuggets' previous front office bought in on that, and they're seeing it pay off now. Yeah, after just peeping the other teams, too, that could potentially have some money, the Chicago Bulls are another one. I think that would be sick. Him and Modest Buzelis on the wings. I mean, that's both switchable defensively. That's three-point shooting, and that's absolute athletic freaks with highlights on both ends. So that would be awesome. The other team I saw in there was the Hornets. That could be interesting. The Utah Jazz are another one. They love, long switchable wings. Peyton Watson can maybe come in and be, what they hoped Taylor Hendricks would be if it wasn't for all the injuries and stuff like that. The Blazers are another team that could have money. So there's going to be a market for Peyton Watson, and he's going to get paid one way or another this upcoming free agency. But if you're a Nuggets fan, that shouldn't stress you out because at least for the present, you have a guy that legitimately makes you the 1B in the Western Conference and a team that could seriously dethrone the 1A OKC Thunder. That's a mouthful. So yeah, I think, it's just really cool to see Peyton Watson finally step up. I'm a huge Peyton Watson guy. I want to get my jersey along with the Trae Young Wizards jersey, but I'm kind of hesitant too because if he goes to a new team, I don't really want to be walking around with a Nuggets Peyton Watson jersey. So we'll see. But yeah, sorry, no one cares about that. So yeah, enjoy the football today. I guess by the time you guys are seeing this, it won't be today. But yeah, hopefully Peyton Watson balled out against the Bucks because that would only solidify this argument of just why he's one of the most high-level emerging two-way players in the entire NBA. Maybe the most exciting player for me to watch as of late, just as a fan of his prior to this. But yeah, folks, that's all I really got for you. That was the GM's office talking about Peyton Watson. We'll see you next time. Peace, love, and Duval.